Well, welcome. My name is Mark Aylward. I'm here with my colleague and good friend and partner, Dr. Suren. And if you're a man between the ages of 40 and around 70 something, and your interests are not only living a long life, but living as high a quality of life as you possibly can, Dr. Suren and I have very exciting news about a partnership that we're initiating, and this video right here is the welcome video to that partnership. So we're going to be talking about physical and mental well-being, as well as hardship, midlife issues that come across the tables of men, like I said, between the ages of 40 and 70. So we're going to get right to it. I'd like to introduce you to my partner, Dr. Suren. And Suren, maybe you can tell us why you got into this. What is it that a man encounters that makes him want to talk to you?
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me to your podcast, and thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, I mean, I've been treating men now for over 35 years, and I still see the common pattern. They have their signals and which are silent. They don't really appreciate what's really happening to them. They have the mid-afternoon 3 o'clock slump or loss of. Then they develop symptoms of tiredness, fatigue, and eventually this leads to much more serious cardiovascular problems. They could have minor silent heart attacks and not realize they're actually having a heart attack. They may have symptoms of pre-diabetes, and eventually this goes on to full-blown diabetes. So I commonly see the patients at this stage when they come to me, and then suddenly they may end up in the ER room where they've had a massive heart attack, or they've collapsed or lost consciousness. And that's really prompted me to say, well, how can we prevent that? How can we improve the lifespan and improve the health span over a longer period of time? So they have that quality of life towards the end stages. So they just don't want to live longer, but then they need to live healthier. And that's why I started on this program.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. I really appreciate the fact that we met one another even just a couple of months ago. And my situation is I take the other side of that challenge, which is the mental and emotional things that happen to us men in midlife. In my particular case, I went through a very contentious divorce, which unfortunately happens to apparently about 50% of us. And that will take what Dr. Suren is talking about, the physical well-being, and exacerbate the pains and the stress on your physical body. But what I help men with is rebuilding after the specific hardship of divorce. And both of us focus on men who are very successful. And one of the things I think, Suren, that I run into is guys that are successful got that way from being not only intelligent and driven, but usually stubborn as well. So the guys that I bump into, and I'd love your opinion on this, one of the challenges is getting them to open up that they actually have a challenge or a problem that they can't necessarily fix on their own. Is that something you run into as well?
I see this all the time. Men are really successful, but neglecting their health. They get so focused on trying to improve their lives in terms of creating wealth, but they don't realize the health is really the wealth.
Yeah.
They're really missing the point. I mean, no point amassing huge amounts of money and you can't enjoy your life.
No.
So they tend to go in the wrong direction, I think. And I see this so often that they have these silent signals which are building up. They just totally ignore the belly fat increasing, the waist circumference increasing, and that metabolic syndromes in the background burning away, and they don't realize they need help.
Yeah, I think it's the same in my side of things. When hardship strikes, when a guy encounters divorce, particularly a successful guy in midlife, he's used to making decisions. He's used to cutting seven-figure deals. He's used to figuring everything out and fixing everything.
Yeah.
And when they bump up against this divorce for the first time, hopefully, maybe the only time, hopefully, this is a road they've never been down before.
Yeah.
And getting them to understand that you need to step back, and whether it's me or Dr. Suren or somebody else, if you're in this place of challenge, physically or mentally, emotionally, professionally, You need an advocate and an objective third party. And when you have somebody like Dr. Suren with decades of experience as a medical doctor with a practice and thousands and tens and thousands of patients, and me, I've got decades of experience helping people advance professionally. It's you got to find somebody that can have the hard conversations with you, and then at the end of the day, yeah, I'd love your opinion on this too, doctor. You know, how do we sustain these changes in lifestyle? So, but before we get there, give us some of your background, doctor. Tell us who you are and what you've built, and just real quickly, maybe a sentence or two.
Mark, I'm a qualified GP in London, UK. I've been practicing medicine for over 35 years. My main interests are cardiovascular medicine and diabetes. And my main focus now is created this new program called Man Strong 2 to help men realize there's a better life out there.
That's great. Thank you. And I'll return the favor. I spent 3 decades as the owner operator of two information technology staffing companies. And in the twilight of the second organization, I began what became a very contentious divorce. I spent 9 years in the family court system here in Florida. And the last 2 years, I represented myself and got sole custody of my 3 children, which you can infer all you want about how contentious it must have been for that result to have. So I packaged my experience as a staffing guy, a talent acquisition guy, with my experience as a single father of 3 young children, where I played the role of both mother and father, and decided I was going to coach men in the twilight of my life to help them rebuild. Because when I looked for resources in the middle of my divorce, there were none available. All the resources were for women. So this is where I think our skill sets combine. You're going to have certain clients that are going to want to talk to me, and I'm going to have clients that are going to want to talk to you. And now, when all goes well, we'll have this enhanced offering that we can now say, we'll work on your emotions, we'll work on your future, we'll work on your mental well-being, but now we'll also be able to work on your physical well-being. And the both of us, I'd love your take on this too. We're very, very strongly inclined to believe that the mind and body are so directly connected that when one is clicking away well, the other will be served. And if one is being depleted, the other will be pulled down. And that's one of the reasons that we've combined our services together. So tell me, what made you, you alluded to it earlier, but expand a little, doctor, on what made you do what you're doing now, this permutation on this approach to men's health.
Tell you what, Mark, in my family, a lot of my uncles died young and had heart attacks, and they were diabetic. So what prompted me really was from a very early age, I was focused on my own health in terms of making sure I was physically fit, ate the right foods, don't smoke, less alcohol. And I then realized if there's some way we can then promote this program, how can we do that together? So when you came along with your ideas of the mental health, and that was missing from my program, and I was really looking for your help in terms, I didn't know where to turn. And it was by fortunate coincidence, or whether it was serendipity, that you contacted me via LinkedIn. And that was really great. It was really kind of you to approach me in the first instance, and I really like that. And that sort of made me feel more comfortable. I can now get my program underway, and then I have a good backup with your help to deal with the mental side. Because the mental mindset, and if you don't have that positive mindset, to deal with problems and how to overcome things, then you can't achieve the physical side. It's very difficult. You'll always produce negative answers. But if you go in with that positive mindset and thinking, well, I can actually achieve something, then the physical side becomes much easier to accept. And I'm really grateful for you to come along and be a partner with me.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that call it what you will, serendipity, coincidence, things happen for a reason, God wants us to combine forces. I think all of those are if not entirely true, partially true. But I have a keen interest in health, in physical health and fitness and nutrition. My daughter's a gut health coach, very
Mhm.
successful. She treats women primarily. Not that I don't have access to her expertise, but when I get to into my conversations with men that are struggling to rebuild after divorce, there's always a physical component. There's always a
Yes.
fitness and nutrition. I mean, exercise saved my life while I was going through what I was going through. Moving around, eating good food, lessening the alcohol intake, as you say, just all the noise. But when I get to the end of my physical capabilities, I all of a sudden it's above my pay grade. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a fitness instructor. I'm not licensed in any capacity of therapy. So having you to be able to introduce my male clients to who are most assuredly would benefit from your wisdom and your program, whether they're yet convinced of that or yet ready for that, that's not up to us, right? But I think that what I do is very well balanced by introducing what you do. And it sounds like what you do is very well balanced by introducing what I do. And I think that I'm looking forward to it being magical. I just love the opportunity to be able to say, look, I've reached my limit with regard to medical advice and nutrition and fitness advice, but I know a guy, you know?
I think that's so important, Mark. We know our limits. I know exactly my capabilities of treating mindset and mental. I'm not a mental specialist or mental health. I'm focused mainly on diabetes, the physical health and the complications of diabetes and cardiovascular problems, cholesterol and the testosterone and you name it. But when it comes to the mindset, that's where I will call upon you for your expertise because I know
Yeah.
you can provide an excellent service to help my patients.
Yeah, well, it's I say one of the phrases I use is it's the same conversation. When people came to me in my 30s and 40s and said
Mhm.
I need a new job, they're in a position that is not ideal. Otherwise,
Mhm.
why would they be talking with me, right? They want
Absolutely.
something better. They want to improve
Yeah.
professionally. So then start having conversations for decades with people in one of the most important decisions of a person's life, which what am I going to do for a living? So much like yourself, when you start getting into and yours is a more private and confidential conversation, although mine is too. It's just not bound by law as yours is. Confidence is very important to both of us, by the way.
Yes.
Keeping all of the information that's exchanged
Mhm.
private. But
Absolutely.
this conversation is let's start talking about things that you've been avoiding, and all the men I know, including myself. So I'll play the hypocrite a little bit. We get in denial about these things. You were alluding
Mhm.
to it before, like gaining weight. You don't just wake up one day, and you're fat. You just didn't bother to notice while you were
Yes.
accumulating this excess visceral fat. And
That's
it
right.
and it's the same with emotional conditions as it is with physical conditions. Do you have a framework that you could simply describe that you go by, Dr. Cern?
I have the 5R method,
Okay.
which is reset, reignite, rebuild, and reclaim and rise into the man you want to be.
Okay.
So this 5R method covers various steps through the whole program. It's called Man Strong 2. And that's really a simple 5 steps to follow, but they're very in-depth and very detailed
Mm-hmm.
in terms of initial blood test, blood work which we can do for them. Then we start on the actual program of nutrition, gut health, etc., which you already mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we come into the psychological factors, and that's where I think you'll play a huge part to help my patients because I think on my program, the psychological element is lacking.
Mm-hmm.
I have a program for that, but the focus is really on the physical side. And I think as part of that program you'll fill for me, which would be very helpful.
Yeah, I have a framework as well that I can describe here real quickly. It's called the R.E.A.L framework, R-E.A.L, and
Mhm.
those that acronym stands for R is reflect,
Mhm.
E is evaluate, A is activate, and L is lead. And in the
Mhm.
leadership at the end of the program, the focus is really on leading yourself again, because one of the things that happens to men in the process of divorce is they lose themselves. They lose a sense of self-worth. They lose their confidence sometimes significantly. They lose maybe their optimism and their hope. And the first road back is to step back and reflect on what's going on. And I
Mhm.
find in that step, I uncover a lot of stuff that is it begins the roadmap for exactly where to go, because everyone's different, and you might find this too. But at the same time, much of what these guys experience is the same. It's personal to them, but it's the same conceptually, right? So, and I think the framework, at least from my perspective, allows me to bring some structure to what I consider a pretty simple process, but it's challenging. It's a difficult process, but it's simple. So, um, you had alluded to the fact that you began this portion of your career, this program that we're talking about, in part because of your own personal experience with premature illness and heart conditions and such. Um, what made the transition from you had a medical practice? Maybe you still do. I'm not sure. Tell us about that. Did you fold that up to do this, or are these running in tandem?
Mark, I'm 75 years of age.
Hey, man, more power to you.
So I well, I retired from my NHS general practice. And I thought to myself, all that knowledge and experience I've had treating diabetic patients, and and I used to see so many patients during my time in practice who would die young from heart disease. And
Hmm.
it was a problem in my own family. And I said and I could chat to my wife about this. I said, what am I going to do now with my retirement? Uh, I don't want, I don't want to be sitting at home the whole day. I need to keep
Hmm.
my mind active. I need to continue working and do something.
Hmm.
Then the idea of, as you said to me, well, you did a lot of work in diabetes. You did a lot of, there's a family history of diabetes, and she's always on about being active and going to the gym and exercising and keeping fit, and which I love to do. And I said, well, here's a chance for me to now start creating a program which I can educate people, not to sell them anything, but more to educate them and to give them the notion that there is something out there which will help them live a better life
Hmm.
as the not only improve their lifespan but have a better health span. I think that's the important thing, and that's what prompted me to go into and to create Manstrong too.
Yep. No, thank you for that. I think the impetus behind what I'm doing now is kind of multifaceted. Again, my decades of helping people find better work and teaching other people how to help people find better work. And in the middle of my divorce, it became so contentious that I had to make a decision with my business partners to sell the company, and we split the proceeds. And then post acquisition, I worked for the acquiring company for a little while. Didn't enjoy that at all. Never really was meant to work for someone else, I suppose. But
No,
when I got sole custody of my kids, I now had the responsibility of being mom and dad. And my kids were very active athletically, extracurricularly, academically. So I was driving them to three different games, three different schools, doctor's appointment. I was all over the place. So I couldn't really do the 9 to 5 to an office.
mhm,
I couldn't start another brick and mortar company. And I thought, what would I do with these skills? And much like yourself, here I have 3 decades of helping people improve professionally. I'm not putting that on the shelf and retiring.
no,
I am going to
no,
share that. And I had a couple conversations with God, and I'm convinced that this is what he wants me to be doing. Not only because I'm good at it and I enjoy it, but because there's such a need for it that's gone unfulfilled. And, without somebody like you or somebody like me, you can make it, you can continue on, but you're probably not going to make it as long. And more importantly, what's the point of living for a long
no,
time if you're not having a high quality of life?
no,
So I think we're both motivated by way more than just money and service. I think it's much bigger than that. I think it also is worth mentioning, Doctor, that my life has been spent in conscious of fitness and nutrition. I was very fortunate to be brought up in a family where those things were important. We were athletes and we worked out and we ate well, and I knew what
mhm,
that was when most people didn't. And so a lot of what I do, and I'm sure it's true with you too, is just making people aware of things
Mhm.
that they're unaware of, or even more often, just reminding them of things they've been told before but have
Mhm.
ignored. And
Yeah,
that's a big one for me. I don't know, is that a big one for you?
absolutely, Mark. I think what you hit the nail there on the head. They know about these things, but they ignore them.
Hmm.
They just totally ignore them. Whether it's just laziness, whether it's fear, whether it's time, we don't really know. They have their own reasons for that, and I respect that.
Hmm.
But we're here to help them understand there is a better way where if you're thinking of living longer, but you need to live healthier, then there's a better way to do that. There's no point trying to live a long life and you're lying in your bed all the time. You don't want that.
Hmm.
You want to live healthier and eat the right food and exercise, as you said. Exercise is a prescription in itself. Exercise is medicine. And the
Yes.
more you exercise, the better in terms of your quality of muscle tone, because if you lose muscle mass, you're more likely to die younger.
Hmm.
And increasing exercise prevents you from diabetes because it absorbs it absorbs the sugar from your blood.
Hmm.
So what you said is absolutely correct. And on top of that, then they have a more positive mindset. They
Hmm.
say, well, right, if I'm going to be healthier and have a good mindset, we both work in tandem.
Yeah.
And then they can work longer, they can work better at the jobs, have a healthier life at home, they improve the relationships with the children and with the wives.
Hmm.
You know, the whole thing goes together.
Yeah, it's interesting. It makes me think of I do a podcast that I think I've made you aware of called the Imperfect Men's Club, and anybody who's listening to this might get a kick out of that. It's free to listen to, and I really appreciate my partner and I really appreciate the publicity. But we we have a framework for our podcast as well, and we call it the flywheel, the Imperfect Men's Club flywheel of life, and we break life into five areas, and in no particular order: money, health, relationships, worldview, and career or life's work. And one of the premier foundational premises of that framework is just what we've been talking about. If one of those areas is threatened, the other four areas suffer from that threat. And so what you've been talking about in terms of this connection between the mind and the body, it crosses all kinds of boundaries because just me as a for instance, when I was in the middle of my divorce and things were really kind of dark, my work struggled. It suffered. My health suffered. My sleep suffered. My relationships suffered. I mean, you can't deny one of those areas of your life without impacting the other four. And you could cut life up into 10 areas or three areas or seven areas. It doesn't matter. We picked five, but everything that you and I are talking about right now supports this notion that you want to take a holistic approach to life, or you want to
Mhm.
just kind of jack yourself up in one area and let the other four struggle and catch
That's
up
right.
later. Balance is a big part of this. And I'd be interested in your opinion on this too. My colleagues and friends that are in their 50s and 60s and 70s, most of them have had something go wrong, whether physical or mental or financial or professional, and they accept it. And I see guys accepting prescription medication as just something they're going to have to do for the rest of their life. I see them buying a second set of clothes they call them fat clothes, and they'll keep the skinny clothes in the closet, but they have no expectation of ever putting
It's,
them on again. And I don't know, there's probably a philosophical or psychological term for it, but when we experience a level of pain or discomfort, and then we just get used to it, and then we
Mhm.
begin to treat it as normal. I think that's very dangerous, but I also think it's extremely common. Is it not in your world as well?
Absolutely, Mark. I see a lot of people will go to the doctors, and they say they had a blood test for cholesterol, and the cholesterol is in the normal range, or the sugar levels are in the normal range, but it's not normal. What they don't realize is that diabetes starts at a very early stage, and they're losing the important pre-diabetes stage where this could be reversed. So if you even if you have a high cholesterol, it can be reversed. If you have a high sugar, it can be reversed. So it's not normal. So taking prescription medicine, I'm not against it. There are patients who will definitely need that, but not at this early stage. So we should be looking at how can we help to reverse the problem rather than say, yes, I accept it and I'll take the medication and go buy more fat clothes.
Hmm.
That's not the way to live. So you're going to get, it'll just go on, you'll have more and more medication, more drugs added, the complications of those drugs causing other complications in terms of kidney problems, blood pressure problems, etc. So
Hmm.
the drugs they're taking themselves will be poisoning them. So my approach really is to say, how can we actually reverse this metabolic decline?
Hmm.
And that's the aim of my program.
Interesting. Yeah, I really is. It really is something else to see a guy experience a level of pain, like in the divorce space. Guys, like it,
Mm.
you lose this relationship that was supposed to be forever, and along with it, you lose friendships, you lose routines,
Yeah.
you lose connections, and there's so many guys that just take the position, well, this is just my my life. This I just have to accept this. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You have, first you have to recognize whether it's your physical well-being or your emotional well-being. To your point, you can reverse these things. You can fix these things. You can rectify these things. But the first step is to realize that that's a choice. You know, I can choose to live the rest of my life in this less than state, or I can seek out ways to improve and maximize the rest of my life. And it seems a simple choice when you say it like that, but it's also a very difficult choice that most men don't make, in my experience.
Mark, what you really used an important word there was choice. And I think if you have the choice, say you come to if you're driving along a road and you come to where the road is diverting into two different directions. You can either go right or left. So it depends on which choice you take and which road you want to follow.
Hmm.
And that really is the important crux of things. If they don't follow the right path, don't follow the right road, this will lead to metabolic decline.
Hmm.
But if they follow the right path, they will definitely see an improvement. They'll improve the longevity. They'll feel a totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a couple of stints in my life where I've let myself get out of shape, usually when
Mm.
I was making the most money, because I allowed that to pull me away from some of the other things that I was
Mhm.
doing. But the recovery from that is it's quite wonderful when you get back a level of mobility, or your breath work increases, or your sleep improves, or any of these things that are indicative of making progress. It
Mhm.
really is magical. What I find is, whether it's working with me or working with you, it's not the getting someone to understand, it's getting someone to sustain, it's getting
Mhm.
someone to continue on once they leave our tutelage or mentorship or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But I think the concepts are pretty simple. But I love this choice thing, because I think that, you know, I was escorted out of my house by the local police under a domestic violence injunction, which was the first of three that were fabricated just to hurt me and take my children away from me. And that night, I was up when I was escorted out of the house. I had nowhere to go, and so I went to the liquor store and I bought a bottle of Johnnie Walker Red, and I took it to a hotel and I drank myself to sleep. And I woke up the next day and I made a choice: don't do that again.
Absolutely.
But I have apparently needed to get that out of my system. I was so
Yeah.
distraught. I was so angry. I was so confused. And I took that position. But I remember the next morning when I woke up hungover with a dry mouth, I thought to myself, okay, that's the wrong choice.
Choice.
What's the other choice? And I
Mhm.
immediately started looking for a place to go to mass, a yoga studio, some exercise routines.
Mhm.
I started digging in deeply into things like meditation and
Absolutely.
mindfulness, everything that was available to me And there's a ton of stuff available. There are plenty of things to do, but why don't we try to moving towards the tail end of this? Why don't we tell us what happens when someone enters your program? How does it work? And then I'll return the favor. What are the steps, the
Sure.
first few steps, and what's the journey look like?
So, Mark, if somebody wants to contact me or join the program, the first thing is that I send out a patient questionnaire, and it's a free call, which lasts about 20 minutes. So the patient returns the questionnaire, and then I have a look at it, and we get on a call, either a Teams meeting or whatever, and we have a chat about the medical concern. What are the real concerns? What's made them tick, and what's made them wanting to join the program in the first instance? So we go quite deeply into that and understand the whole concept, what the program is going to offer. Then there was the 5 steps, the 5 R method, and and it's just a brief discussion. And after they feel that they really want to get involved, then we then set up another conversation in about a week's time, give them time to think about it, and then we go into much in-depth talking about every step, what's actually involved, and and most patients like that. They like that time just to cool off, give them a chance to think about it, and when they come back, they're prepared to get. They got to be motivated. They got to be really wanting to do the program.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Mm-hmm.
people. There are people I've refused purely because I could see they're not actually motivated. They're not going to actually join the program
Mm-hmm.
in terms of carrying out the instructions, because we have with the program, I have an app which monitors the vital signs, monitors the program, monitors the blood tests, and all these things can be done from wearables these days.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want to follow the program to a rigid level, then I tell them, it's not going to work for you. You've got to
Mm-hmm.
be motivated.
Yeah, no, the
And
same thing is true with my program. And do you start at what point do you benchmark their vitals? Do you do blood work as stool samples or what kind
yeah,
of benchmarking do you do?
we started with the reset is the first stage, where we start all the blood work initially, so we know exactly what the baselines are.
Okay.
Then at 6 months, we repeat the blood test again to see what the improvements are.
Okay.
And this is all monitored, and the vital signs are all monitored by the app. So, and then this gives them a certain amount of accountability, because actually, if they don't do it, then we know they're not going to actually follow the program.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't come back to us and tell us, well, this program didn't work. Well, let's have a look at your app, and they tell us exactly where you are in terms of your accountability and what
Mm-hmm.
you've done and what you shouldn't have done.
Yep.
Because it tracks your nutrition, it tracks your weight, it tracks your exercise, it tracks your mindset in terms of mood. You have to fill in various questions about your mood. And that might be something helpful for you also in terms of your clients.
Yeah, mine is less metric driven. I mean, what does it mean to feel better, right? I mean,
Mm.
I can track that medically with vital
Medically.
statistics,
Yes.
but I can't really track that with although they do have some pretty significantly cool technology now to do brainwave measurement and
Mhm.
different areas of the brain. I don't have that
Yeah.
capacity right now, but mine is pretty similar in the sense that I don't accept just anybody because if you're not ready for me, I can't
Mm.
help you. And
Yeah.
I think that's probably true of anything that would fall into the category of making worthwhile progress, becoming better.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing I think that is helpful to have somebody like you or somebody like me along is this accountability buddy
Mm.
notion. I never really liked that phrase. It sounded silly to me, but I was listening to somebody talk the other day and they was like, here's what it means. If you're just going to the gym on your own and you get up at 7 and you go to the gym 5 days a week, how easy is it on Wednesday to go, I don't feel very good. But if you
Mm.
told your buddy, I'm going to meet you there at 7, you're going to go even when you don't feel like going
You like it?
because you don't want to let him down. And
Absolutely.
I can't emphasize enough the impact of a qualified, trusted third party advocate in any of these big life areas
Mm.
because you can do all of this on your own, especially with AI. You can go look all this stuff up.
Mm.
But if you
Absolutely.
if you don't have somebody like Dr. Suren or like me who's seen it all, or I shouldn't say that, seen a lot of it,
Love it.
um, and can bounce things off of you and ask you to think about things that you might not think about on your own. Take the medicine aside, take the medical experience aside, take my career aside. if we're just honest and trustworthy and moderately intelligent, just being your advocate from an objective standpoint, no emotional
Mhm.
involvement, nothing at all like that, it can bring magical results. So, you know, you've mentioned, Dr. Suren, a couple times how excited you are about being able to offer what I bring to the table. What do you think happens when a guy does both of these things, when he fixes his body and his mind? What do you think happens that wouldn't happen otherwise?
Firstly, he regains his confidence. He now realizes that what he was missing before, and he suddenly it's a wow factor. It's
Mhm.
suddenly his whole mindset changes. He becomes more positive in outlook. He starts to eat properly. He starts to exercise properly. Now he has a certain amount of accountability to answer to, whether it be yourself or me. And then he suddenly feels he can start to see changes. And once you start to see the changes, you'll want to see more and
Hmm.
you want to see more. And this goes on because you become more positive in your outlook. You want to get to work early. You want to sort of produce the best work for the day.
Hmm.
All these things in your mindset changes. And then it's amazing. As you quite rightly say, it's truly magical.
Yeah.
The lifestyle completely changes. And then the whole home life changes, which is that what you really want. You want a really good home life, and you've mentioned sadly about your stresses, and I really applaud you for sort of sharing that quite openly. So it's amazing. So, so what a difficult
Well,
time you must have experienced.
yeah,
So
you know,
that's quite not easy to talk about it, I can imagine. But you really, you've come out in the open and been quite transparent about what happened to you in your life. So
I think the transparent, thank you for that, but I think the transparency is necessary to be as
yeah.
effective as I want to be. And, the other thing, people don't really think about the peripheral benefits, and not to get,
Mm,
into areas that are beyond my expertise, but I remember I didn't go on a date for years after I
mm,
got divorced. And dating in your 40s or 50s or 60s, when you haven't dated in 25 years, that's an entire subject unto itself.
yeah,
But what happens when you put your foot back in the dating pool and you're fat, lack of confidence, tired,
yeah,
pessimistic? That is not
yeah.
the way to get back into the dating pool. And you know
No
what?
way.
You know what confidence is?
Yes.
It's attractive, and
Mm,
women love confidence, right?
confidence.
And I don't know anything medically about erectile dysfunction, but I bet you it can be eliminated with healthy vital signs. So your
Absolutely.
sexual life, your relationships, your romantic life, your physical life, the relationship, the way that your kids look up to you and admire you and watch you and model your behavior, all of these things are going on, whether you want to acknowledge them or not.
Mm,
And if you're struggling because you're not in physical condition or your emotions are getting the best of you, all of these things are going to suffer. So a lot of the guys that I bump into think this is kind of limited to this one area. No, I think what you'll find is if you engage someone like Dr. Suren and someone like me in conjunction with one another, all of these other areas of your life that you're not going to see immediately are slowly growing like a well fertilized and watered garden. And
mhm.
it just starts to multiply. It's like dropping a rock in the water and letting those ripples just
Ripples.
that butterfly effect. So this is life-changing stuff, and you can take it on your own. You can take it on very specifically medically, or you can take it on specifically emotionally. But if this package is available to you and it's simple, anybody can do this that's ready, right? Why wouldn't you? So just kind of a food for thought. How does one get a hold of you, Dr. Suren? We're going to wrap this thing up, and you can certainly add whatever we may have missed. But how does one get a hold of you, and then I'll return the favor.
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Suren Naidoo. You can find me on LinkedIn. I can give you my LinkedIn profile later. Or you can go onto the website, www.manstrong2.com, and you can get hold of me. It gives you a form to fill out and a patient questionnaire. And yeah, it's
The
quite easy to
word
find
the
me.
word man and the word strong and the number
One
two.
word. Yeah. MANSTRONG 2.
Okay. And
And
Naidoo
strong.
is your last name is Naidoo?
That's it. I do. Perfect.
Okay. So you can reach me as well on LinkedIn, and my name is Mark with a K, and the last name's Aylward. I also have a similar questionnaire to the doctors, obviously more towards my purpose, but it's a URL called The Real Assessment, therealassessment.com. And it's a 15 or 20 question survey. And the next step after that would as well be a free conversation where we'd go over your questions and answers and start to get some context. And I would be determining whether I think you're ready, and you would be determining whether you think I'm the guy to help you. And I think both of our approaches are similar in that regard. Would you agree?
Absolutely, Mark. I think we work the way we think and the way we want to help our patients. Certainly, we're in alignment.
Any final thoughts, doctor?
I'm just so happy to be with you. I'm just so happy that we've managed to get together and do this podcast, because I think this, if anybody's out there listening, they think, well, these are honest, trustworthy people. We're not out there to sell. We want to really help you. And if you
Yeah.
feel you're ready to come on board, please contact either Mark or myself.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think whether you call Dr. Suren or you start with me isn't relevant to either one of us. He's going to make men aware of my existence, and I'm going to make men aware of his. I don't have another resource, so I'm all in with Dr. Suren, and he has suggested the same to me. And so we really hope this works, because I think it's God's work, and I think huge demand for both of us, and
Absolutely.
too many guys not taking guys like us up on these opportunities to not just grow older, because my dad's almost 98, but he doesn't take any
Amazing.
medication at all, and he's one of the happiest guys I know, and I've watched him model what we're talking about for 97 years. And when you combine physical well-being and emotional well-being, you're going to be able to just have a lot more fun for the rest of your life and get a lot more accomplished. So thank you, Dr. Stern. I am very happy to be connected with you as well, and I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do to help guys moving forward.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure.